in to Talkin' Ball. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton. It's On Texas Football, brought to you by orthopedic doctor, Dr. Brett Robin over at the Austin Orthopedic Institute. We'll tell you a little bit more about how the former Longhorn is helping people nowadays. But here's tonight, Jerry and I are going to talk a little Talkin' Ball. Actually, there was some recruiting news that broke a little late in the afternoon. Texas actually picked up a walk-on, Jerry, for the class of 2025. He's a punter, kickoff guy, Garrick Heel, out of, I believe he's out of Arizona, but he was initially committed to Louisiana Tech. But you're hearing, and he has posted on Twitter that he's going to actually be going to the University of Texas.
Yeah, he had put out last week that he had a talk with Jeff Banks, and they offered him. Obviously, he's betting on himself, preferred walk-on, but a guy who averaged 45 yards a punt last year, also has kickoff abilities as well. He is betting on himself, and he is foregoing a scholarship to Louisiana Tech to be a preferred walk-on at Texas, showing a lot of confidence in himself. He's a first for me. And, you always wonder, when you've been in the business a long time, could something happen that hasn't happened before? He sent out his commitment edit from a family vacation at Turks and Caicos from the beach. So
he's out of man.
Yeah, he's out of Arcadia High in Phoenix, Arizona. So yes, he committed from Turks and Caicos. So congrats to him on his commitment and his vacation. Sorry we were a little late getting started. I was playing Uno with Joe Z. He all he plays the green cards. I won.
Jerry, Garrick Heel, your thoughts on Texas and what they did here? Is this essentially a situation where Texas kind of flexing its muscle a little bit, being that it's not only a Power 4 school these days, but also probably a better place to go to college than Louisiana Tech, et cetera?
Yeah, I think he had been on campus before. I believe that was last summer. But this really comes down to him betting on himself. I think the chance to be a student athlete at the University of Texas. We're going to get him on the show when he returns to the state. So I think he'll join us on the show and kind of tell us his story. But yeah, I think this is him betting on himself from a football standpoint as a punter and a kickoff guy. Also the academics at the University of Texas.
All right, you guys, make sure you get your questions in. We're going to talk nothing but recruiting mostly today. We also we're going to look at a couple of the recruiting visitors that are coming up this weekend in a little bit more in depth. But first, it was the first day back for summer football for the Longhorns. And when I say summer football, I really just mean training. And it's our first look at a Longhorn Jerry detected in the tweet that the University of Texas sent out. I'll let Matt put that up on the screen, and Jerry, you can take it from there.
Yeah, that's obviously that's Trevor Gooseby, Boom Easter to the left, but that is Devin Coleman, freshman offensive lineman from Cedar Hill to the right. So he went through his first workout today at Texas. I think their first big one is tomorrow. I'm not sure everybody took part in this one today. Depends on if they're released from the guys that just got in. They have the physicals, the EKGs, everything. So if you were good to go, then you worked out today. But yeah, that is the Colemans have arrived. The Colemans triplets have arrived on campus. Obviously, Jordan, Devin, scholarship players, Isaiah, preferred walk-on. Josie asks how many people threw up today. I've not heard that yet, but I will say for the new guys, the linemen, if they hadn't been doing conditioning, somebody probably hurled at some point today.
Yeah. Before we also move on to recruiting, I think it's time to say congratulations as well.
Oh, yeah.
The ladies took care of business this morning and this afternoon against the University of Tennessee. A two-pitcher shutout for the Longhorns. Women's softball team beating Tennessee 2-0 on the back of Katie Barrett's home run, and then another run that happened in the sixth inning on an error. But Texas there, Jerry, Morgan, with the first four innings. Then Tegan Caven came in and pitched the last three. Texas shutting out Tennessee. The Longhorns will be playing for the national championship against the winner of Texas Tech and Oklahoma. And right now, as of before coming on air, the Sooners were down to Texas Tech. It could be an all Texas final, Texas versus Texas Tech.
That people should write stories if Tech knocks off Oklahoma. They're at 2-0 and they have a runner on second in the bottom of the fourth with nobody out. So Tech's threatening again. But if Tech beats Oklahoma, then that sets up the Cody Campbell NIL showdown versus Texas for a chance to Tech out Oklahoma and Texas. And that should get some articles written, honestly, because that made a lot of noise when Texas Tech paid Kennedy $1 million. And you know what? They have got their return on their investment so far. If they knock off Oklahoma and get to the national championship, whether they beat Texas or not, they got their return on their investment in this one. If they win a national championship, wow. Texas is playing awfully well right now. But that will be something if Texas Tech plays Texas for the national championship. People should write about it because it actually is very interesting in the landscape of college sports today if it happens.
Kennedy actually transferred from Stanford, and Texas was one of the schools that she was heavily considering, as well as OU. Yet she went to a non-blue blood Texas Tech and is now looking like she may be pitching for a national championship for the Red Raiders. We'll see what happens over the next hour or so. We'll follow that a little bit for you guys as well. But first, I want to say thank you before we get into our questions from everyone. I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Special thanks to Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages. Specializing in musculoskeletal health, Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach first, but also offers advanced surgical options, including arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, and total joint replaces with convenient offices across Central Texas, Austin, Georgetown, Killeen. Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000. Get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. Dr. Brett Robin, the former Texas Longhorn running back out of Austin, Westlake. Good guy, sponsor of Monday night's Talkin' Ball with On Texas Football. Jerry, we talk about all this, and we got a bunch of different questions, and I thought we were going to hit on recruiting first. But actually, Jose Rodriguez has another question for us. With Arch at QB and Texas's expectations, what would count as a disappointing season? Are injuries still a fair excuse now that depth has improved?
I would say to the last point, yeah, because you have to stay relatively healthy. I mean, look at the chat may not like this, but if Texas has an Oklahoma type injury season, I mean, it gets tough. Say your top 4 receivers are all out for an extended period of time. Oh, and you lose your nickel for the year. Oh, and your best corner for the year. Yeah, injuries can still impact it. I'm not saying Oklahoma would have won 10 games, but what I am saying is injuries can mount on you, and it can become an issue for you in the season. You saw the year Georgia beat Alabama. Alabama's receivers went down late in the season, and they were without receivers 1 and 2 in the national title game. Did that have an impact in the game? Well, yeah. Jamison Williams was one of those guys. They had a number of guys injured that year. So injuries can impact you for sure. I don't care how much talent you have. If Texas stays relatively healthy, Bobby, I would say not making the playoff is what it would be.
It would be the blowing away of the expectation. Yeah, I mean, look, anything below 9-3 would be a disappointing season. I'll be. Yeah, I think that. Of course, I think that 10-2, 11-1 are all possibilities, but you want to stay in that upper echelon, and 9-3 is good for a first-year starting quarterback. I know it's as good as Arch Manning could be, and I'm not going to be able to talk some people out of this. They're going to say, "Oh, what are you talking about, Bobby? 10-2 or at the very least." I get it, I think anything below 9-3 would likely be disappointing, even with injuries, unless that injury came at quarterback. That injury comes at quarterback, all bets are off, in my opinion. So I will say that. But Jerry, they do have enough. They should have enough depth at most positions, in my opinion, to be able to handle this. That would be something that, Jose, to your point, whether or not it would be fair, Steve Sarkisian and Brandon Harris and those guys have done a remarkable job of bringing guys into the program and having guys that are what I think are ready to go, even if they're younger guys. They're talented enough to play and put up a fight for Texas, in my opinion. All right, let's go to KD 35. Is Mark Bowman, the tight end out of Santa Ana Mater Dei, still coming in for his official visit this weekend? Or is Texas going to push for a fall official visit now? Also, Jerry, can you give us an update on Derek Cooper and Tyler Atkinson? Matt, our producer, would you please put up the official visit list for this weekend? KD 35, when we put this up, you'll notice that Mark Bowman is not on the list for this weekend.
Yeah, no, I think, look, the Mark Bowman recruitment, I think, is over, barring something with the House settlement, changing the course of that one. So I think it would take something major, because the reality is, before that commitment happened, there were calls made to see if people would match, especially where he might have wanted to go, and they said no. So I think that ship has sailed, barring a change that comes through the House settlement agreement, which would change the course of some recruitments, and Bowman could be one of those. We'll see on that. Derek Cooper, we'll see when that Texas still thinks he's going to make an official visit. The date has not been set. Tyler Atkinson's announcing his dates kind of on his own. Last week, I was told, yes, he plans from a close source, yes, he plans to be in Austin in June, but he hasn't released that date. If he's coming in, I think it would be this weekend. So I'll say that. If Atkinson were to come into Texas, and by the way, I think he's a long shot for Texas. I think when you look at the linebacker position, Xavier Griffin and Braden Rouse out of Georgia are much more realistic options right now for Texas than Tyler Atkinson. Even if Tyler comes in, I would consider him a long shot right now.
Jerry, I'm looking at this list, and I was intrigued by this morning, and we talked a little bit about it on Coffee and Football, but we never really watched his film together. Tell me a little bit about this wide receiver, Cohen Brown, out of Waxahachie, because Texas was a late offer here. Matt, do you mind rolling his film while Jerry talks about him a little bit here? Because this is a guy that you called it a wild card recruitment, Jerry. I think I understand what you mean by that, but tell us a little bit about the player and where you're going with that from a player perspective.
Yeah, so he pretty much he had we'll go through some of those offers. He hit big in the spring. He's a one-time USC pledge. I call it a wild card recruitment because he's a late May offer or a May offer. Texas gets him scheduled for an OV, but not a guy that Texas has been recruiting for a long time, right? This is more of a spring evaluation. Naheem Burrows goes to Clemson, so Texas takes a step back and says, okay, where is a guy that maybe not, I'm not saying he's as good as Naheem Burrows, to be clear. I think Naheem Burrows is a stud. A kid that really maybe made a big jump from sophomore to junior year from a speed and productivity standpoint. Well, he certainly did that. He went from, I believe, 12 catches for 115-ish yards as a sophomore to 54 for 1,084 as a junior and 11 touchdowns. He also posted a 10.69 and 10.71 in the 100 meters this spring. It's really, to me, track season matters still, and track season really matters for the kids who come up in recruiting. Those guys normally put up big times, and that's exactly what that happened. Colorado offered him, Notre Dame offered him, Arizona offered him. He committed to USC in early April. Some of that when he was already on the track, putting up some times. Now, USC offered him in February. So when colleges were going through Waxahachie, a number of schools offered him, especially some SEC schools in there, like Mississippi State, Kentucky, Auburn, Cal also did, Georgia Tech. But when he started putting up those track times, that really grabbed people's attention. And that's what track can still do for some of these kids. He's a talented guy. He's really quick getting into his routes. I think he changes direction well. And as you can see there, he can race past you. You can race past press coverage. He can race past off coverage. And the thing I'd say about Cohen Brown is he plays, if you're one of those that says, okay, what's the competition like? This guy plays as good a competition as there is in the state in that district. He really does. I mean, when you say, okay, this guy put up 58 catches for 1,084 yards, I mean, the schedule that Waxahachie plays is amongst the best in the country. You're talking DeSoto, you're talking Duncanville, you're talking all those schools, and that is a man's schedule. So when you put it on the board against that, that grabs people's attention. And they were 9-4 last year, went to the third round of the playoffs, and he had some really big games and games that mattered. Their losses last year were Coppell, Duncanville, DeSoto. Then they won out in their district, Mesquite, Horn, Cedar Hill, Skyline, Lancaster, Mesquite. Then they beat Midway, North Forney, and lost to Bridgeland in the third round of the playoffs. So he put it on the board against really good people, which grabbed people's attention, coaches' attention. But then I think it was the 10-6-9, the 10-7 on the track in the spring that really took it to another level for him.
I got to be honest, his quarterback's pretty good too. Looks a little small, but
that's the sophomore kid, Jerry Meyer, that Texas has evaluated. He's got some offers. But he's a good player. He's got Power 4 offers as a sophomore quarterback.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the one that we thought was going to be in this weekend, but did not make it. Right? Is that our belief?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And by the way, Waxahachie is a very talented team. They got a number of D1 guys on this team. Jaquan Snell, 2020 defensive back safety, big kid, is one of the top safeties in the state of Texas, and Texas has offered him. He's been on campus a few times. This is a very talented program that plays in a district that you have to be extremely talented to even make the playoffs.
Hey, Jerry, we're going to circle back. You mentioned that quarterback. We're going to circle back to that in just a minute when we have some time. But first, I want to get to some more questions here, if you don't mind. This one from Roger. Jerry, when was the last time Texas revamped the entire DL? Because that's what it seemed to have happened with 5 to 6 portal ads. They revamped it quite a bit last year. Theoretically, they added 3 guys to the portal, right? Lole, Norton, Tia Savea.
I think they did it a lot differently this year. And this is the most guys they've taken out of the portal, but they got more multi-year guys. And so, Murad Watson, obviously freshman All-American, very high on him. Levon Johnson has at least 2 years left. I think Hero Canoe has another year if he wants it. So Texas got multiple D linemen out of this cycle that are going to have multiple years in the program, which should ease the pressure next year, assuming those guys stay, right? Should ease some of the pressure. Now, because I'll say this too, Texas loves Josiah Sharman, Myron Charles, the 2 freshmen. That doesn't mean you're going to see a ton of them this year, but it also, if you don't see a lot of them, it doesn't mean Texas doesn't think they're going to be players, because they really do. And Alex January had a really good spring, going to be a sophomore. So they're going to be as long as all those guys return, which is obviously player retention's been what Texas may be best at right now to sustain success. They should have a lot lesser need in the portal next year. That doesn't mean they won't take one, but unless multiple guys leave, you're not going to see a 3 or 4 man portal class on the defensive line for Texas next year. The plan is to take 3 or 4 out of the high school ranks this year, add that in. So you could be as low as 1 portal guy if everybody returns. It's on the roster right now. And then you also have the factor of what's Justice Terry going to look like a year from now? Is he going to be more of an interior guy, or is he going to be a 5'3" like Alfred Collins? Could Lance Jackson even play some of that in time? I think he's going to stay at edge. But Justice Terry's going to carry 295 pounds in time, so maybe 300 pounds. Then you have him who's still in the D-line meeting rooms, even though he's working out at edge.
Thank you, C-Mac Texas Horn, for the super chat here. Given the intense heat for the games in August, September, Has Del Conte discussed replacing the field turf with natural grass, excuse me. Yes, that has been discussed. I think they're going to start talking about it more in reality once they get the final touches done on the new facility, the indoor facility. That'll open up some opportunities for them there to start looking at other projects that they want to take on, and that may very well be one of them. So, CMAC, that's where that is at this point. By the way, if you haven't been to the university lately, that construction is going quite well at this point and is still due on time as of what am I trying to say here? As of last week, it was still due in June. So that'll be what we have. Whenever I talk to Chris Del Conte in Destin at the spring meetings, that's what he said. This one from Jay. What number do you guys think Emmett Mosley will be, the Stanford receiver? He wore number 13, Jerry. Parker Livingstone is number 13 at Texas, though. So Parker would have to give up his number, or Emmett Mosley may go to a different number. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. That's one I don't have an answer to. I'm looking right now at the roster, seeing what is potentially available. There is a 3 on offense that is available.
Yep. 3 on offense available.
Yep. Outside of that, none of your lower 10 is not available, by the way.
For anybody.
For anybody. For anybody that's asking about that, that's not available.
Neither is 12.
Neither is 12. Yeah, I mean, you're getting down to it. At that point, everything is pretty much, there's nobody's taking 20. 21 on offense is available with Niblett moving to defense. So it's slim pickings.
I bet he could convince a backup quarterback that he would deserve number 18.
Yeah.
A walk-on quarterback. But we'll see where it goes. Can't be 20 either, by the way, guys. Those are Vince Young, Colt McCoy, obviously, and Earl Campbell at the university.
Somebody asked about, have we already talked about the punter? Yes. The funny thing about him, he preferred walk-on, betting on himself. He had a full scholarship to Louisiana Tech out of Phoenix Arcadia High School. He's the first guy that's ever, to my knowledge, that's ever sent out a commitment tweet from Turks and Caicos on a vacation. So family vacation. So double congrats on your committing to Texas and you're committing from a beach in Turks and Caicos.
Jerry, real quick, breaking news a little bit here. Taylor Johnson, Gavin Honore, the wide receiver out of Mater Dei in 2027, has committed to Georgia per Hayes Fawcett.
Yeah, I mean, Texas kind of was recruiting him, but pretty early for me on that one. That was not a kid that I'd heard a lot about that Texas thought they had a realistic shot with.
Okay. Slick Rick, Mark Bowman on Flip Watch as the season or year goes on. Jerry, I'm going to let you say whether or not you believe that's a possibility. I'm just going to say this. I am interested only if the House settlement is approved.
Yes.
And then there's some teeth in what the House settlement is trying to put into play with the Deloitte oversight of what NIL really is. If that doesn't get challenged, then I could see players like Mark Bowman or high dollar NIL guys be on Flip Watch for anybody. And that's just not just Mark Bowman. I mean, I want to be clear about that, or just USC. I just think that if that comes to pass and they actually are able to enforce it legally, there's going to be a lot of things going on.
Right now, I say no until what Bobby's talking about, because there was calls made before this commitment and there were no takers at that price. At the 3 years, 4.7.
Yeah.
All right. On that one.
Jedi Master Bevo, and this will lead us into some recruiting talk here because you do have some other stuff to tell us. Jerry, do you and CJ have your undercover airport gear ready for recruit arrivals on Friday?
Yes.
Is that all we get? Is yes?
Yeah. It's that time of year. It's that time of year. But yes,
Jerry, are we going to? Here's a bigger question: are we going to see anybody this year among the official visitors as big as Nick Brooks
no,
was last year?
no chance, no chance. But like when he came down the escalator, like it's one of those things where anybody kind of did this number. They're like, even if they didn't know, they were just wondering who that guy was. They probably thought he was an NFL player. He got looks from everybody. That's how big he was. Very few people can get looks from everybody.
Jerry, let's change gears a little bit. I mentioned that you had a little bit of news on 2027 quarterbacks. As folks know that follow Texas closely, the Longhorns already have a class of 2026 quarterback committed. That's Dia Bell out of South Florida, the son of former NBA player Raja Bell. Dia is a 5-star prospect that's committed to the Longhorns. So Texas really in good shape there. 2027 is where we're looking now. So that really means guys that are just going to be high school juniors. But the reality of it is, Jerry, is the reason we're so interested in this is exactly the kind of time period when Dia Bell committed to Texas a year ago and KJ Lacey committed to Texas 2 years ago, is really going into their junior years. And so I guess I'm going to ask you this. What's going on based on what we know with 2027 quarterback recruiting? I know there's another young man that you have learned about that's going to be on campus this coming week. Gunnar Rivers was in, Peyton Houston was in, Malachi Ziegler was in. Those are the big names, one of whom is from down in Mobile, Alabama. That's Gunnar Rivers. Malachi Ziegler from Benton, Louisiana, excuse me, is just north of Shreveport. And then Peyton Houston, who is from Shreveport as well. What's going on there, and what's this new name guy that you want to tell people about?
Not necessarily a new name, but new to visiting this Thursday, because there were some questions. I'd reached out to see if he's coming in Sunday. That wasn't happening. Kavian Bryant out of Palestine Westwood. He is a 3A guy who is a very raw, but a tremendous playmaker in athletics, period. His dad played at Mississippi Valley State's the head basketball coach at Westwood High. He's averaged about 30 a game at the 3A level at Westwood in basketball. He's got basketball offers from Stanford, A&M, and Florida State. He has about 20 football offers. Florida offered him in May. His quarterback trainer is J.P. Tillman, who trains Trey Owens and DJ Lagway. So it makes sense that Florida's now offered him. I spoke with somebody close to that recruitment today that said, yeah, Milwee has watched him, and he is coming to throw Thursday. And he's choosing this to go throw to see if he gets a Texas offer instead of going to LSU, where it was said they were going to offer him. So I think the potential to get a Texas offer is something that's very intriguing for him. He has a little brother as well that's a freshman, going to be freshman, that already has offers from Texas Tech, UTSA, and SMU in football. But he's an interesting prospect because if there's any, and he's raw as a quarterback, he is a heck of a talented athlete. But if there is any talk of playing college basketball as well as football, I'm not sure how many of the schools that are offered him will stay on him, because that's a crossover sport, Bobby. And, you know, if you're on a good college basketball team, let's just say you go to a Texas and Sean Miller gets it humming in your second weekend team every now and again, or you're not there for spring practice, maybe a little bit of spring practice. I just don't see Sark going that direction. Now, if this kid said, I'm not playing college basketball, I think that changes his recruitment. I've heard Peyton Houston had a good day. I was told today that Gunnar Rivers was impressive to Steve Sarkisian and A.J. Milwee. Have not heard anything on Malachi Ziegler yet, but I think Gunnar Rivers' recruitment might play out a little bit longer than some of these quarterbacks who are committing early.
You could tell that he does not have the greatest mechanics in this, but you can also tell he has an arm, Jerry, and he is twitched.
Oh, yeah.
Woo. I mean, he makes, and when I say twitchy, I mean he can make people miss going backwards while they're coming forwards. You know what I mean? That's a rare type of ability for a young man. And that's
he's a little Lou Dog, where's he from? Palestine Westwood. 3A. He plays 3A, doesn't play great competition. He's a sandlot football player right now, but he is a really talented one. He's just a talented athlete. He averages 30 a game in basketball at the 3A level. He actually played really well in an AAU tournament I was at. He plays with Southern Assault on the Adidas circuit when he does play. And he had a really good weekend a few weeks ago when I was at a tournament. But really talented, one of the top 2 sport athletes in the country. But again, he's going to be an interesting recruit in this cycle because if he wants to play college basketball too, I think that's going to limit who will go on him in football full. Because
there are just not many basketball, football,
not quarterbacks,
especially not quarterbacks.
Yeah,
you're 100%.
Those days are kind of over. The Charlie Ward, Donovan McNabb days. You don't see that anymore because missing spring practice. It's a tough one for a college coach, especially. I mean, that'd be a big move for Steve Sarkisian.
Football offenses have become more complex too.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's part of that why you don't see that anymore as well. I question for you. I want to make sure we don't let this fly by. You mentioned it, but I want to call it out, and that's that you said Gunnar Rivers apparently impressed the Texas staff over the weekend.
Yeah, and Milway had been to see him a couple of times. I think once during the season when he went to see KJ Lacey, and then obviously once in the spring. So Texas had been there. That was Gunnar and Phillips' first known visit to the University of Texas, by the way, first known visit to the University of Texas. But I've heard that Texas staff was impressed with him on Sunday, as they were Peyton Houston. We've not heard on Malachi Ziegler yet, but we did hear that the Texas staff liked what they saw from Rivers, but they had seen him before. Sark, that was Sark's first time to see him in person, obviously.
Yeah, and the thing to hear is that we know Texas has offered Peyton Houston to this point. We know that they're interested in Gunnar Rivers now. They're going to see this young man from Palestine Westwood as well this week. We'll see who else. Jerry Meyer from Waxahachie we just talked about a little bit too, right, Jerry? So is he at 28 or is he at 27?
27.
27
yeah.
Also. So,
and by the way, Gunnar Rivers' known offers, and it's a lot like the Manning recruitment. There's not a lot that's going to be set out there. Auburn, Miami, NC State, I think Ole Miss. He's got a few now. He may have more than that. They just haven't been announced.
Gotcha. All right. I have some more questions coming in. This one from our friend Justin Yarbrough down there in Southeast Texas. Justin, who are some great recruits that came from terrible teams?
Man, Bobby, you got somebody?
Well, I'll tell you the one that made a terrible team not a terrible team, and he just won a Super Bowl. I mean, Channelview has never won a game before. I mean, no offense to Channelview, but I mean, they win 5 games at the most while I was first 30 years I covered this business, 20 years.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts gets there. They all of a sudden are beating North Shore. And so, or at least competing with them and Beaumont Westbrook and all those Golden Triangle schools. But a guy like that actually elevated. He wasn't on a terrible team because he was on the team.
I'm not Hump Day with Hills. I'm not sure how good Elsick was back in the day.
They were in the playoffs.
They were in the playoffs, but maybe not what they were. Michael Griffin at Austin Boo. I think a lot of these teams made the playoffs, so not terrible teams. Tyrone Swoops at White was on a quarterback of a 1-9 team his senior year in 2A football. That may have been a precursor. That was a quarterback, honestly. I'm just trying to think, Bobby. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that I can remember just being on bad teams. Maybe not talented teams, but not bad teams.
It's really rare to have a quarterback or a running back that's on a bad team. that ends up being, because those guys can handle the ball so much. So you're looking for guys that are playing maybe offensive line or defensive line or another position that is that kind of out there. But nothing comes to my mind immediately.
I'm looking back like in the early 2000s at some Texas classes right now, and I'm not finding anybody.
Savion Red, this is a good one.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes. Yeah. Not a national recruit, but he did not the same, but he did what Jalen Hurts did. He didn't win district title, but he got Grand Prairie to the playoffs, and Grand Prairie doesn't really sniff the playoffs very often in football. Those lines are drawn for South Grand Prairie down there.
Skyline was actually decent with Hodges Mitchell.
Yeah.
You said terrible. So kind of, I mean, that tells me like 2-8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tyrone Swoops was the guy that initially came to mind for me.
Who was?
Tyrone Swoops.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jerry, this is from Jay Dobbs, and he has a good background question for you here. When you say a recruit might commit, quote, if Texas really pushes him, end quote, what does that involve? Explain your thought process and what you mean by that.
So obviously anybody Texas brings in for an OV, they really like as a prospect. But I think there's different levels to that. There's when this guy's on the official visit, they push him, their chips are all in on the table. This kid absolutely knows he can commit to Texas tomorrow if he wants to. Then there's kind of slow playing some guys. You call it keeping it warm, whatever you want. You really like him as a player. You have 7 other guys on the board at that position that you like too, and you want to kind of get through these official visits and see where the chips are going to fall. Then if a couple, 3 of those guys don't go well, you're making a push on somebody else. And so that's really what it comes down to, because all 50-plus guys that come in for official visits can't sit in Steve Sarkisian's office on Sunday and commit.
The numbers just don't say that. You got to have prioritization.
Yeah,
is my understanding, and it's just reality. And so some guys, the number 5 receiver may not be pushed or really pushed to commit. Before we get to our an ad read and then our final couple of questions, I wanted to introduce some levity here. Thank you, Paul. Arch Manning will finish with a Nobel Prize, UFC heavyweight championship belt, and a Heisman. My expectation, level-headed. What else is he going to be, Jerry, besides the UFC champ and win a Nobel?
Well, I think the first thing, the question I have that needs to be answered, and it's going to be answered in 10 days, is he going to be on the cover of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine?
Ooh, there you go.
Dave Campbell's is having a countdown on Instagram right now. Matt might be able to pull that up. They had their 2022 cover, I think, today, which they threw a picture of. But in 10 days, they're going to announce who is on the cover of Dave Campbell's. Is Arch Manning going to be on that cover? Is it going to be Sark and Elko on that cover? Who's it going to be?
I'm going to say this.
Is it going to be Cody Campbell on that cover?
So we know some of the guys over there that work. They haven't told us this. We also know I know with the publisher of the publication as well, and they haven't told us anything. So this isn't going over anything. But I did used to help run a fairly large business in the sports publishing space. Actually, a couple of them. If they don't put Arch Manning on the cover, they are missing a financial opportunity.
They only have 2 chances to do
it. And maybe, Jerry, I don't think I would be willing to take that gamble that there were 2.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. By the way, that was the cover. Matthew, bring that back up real quick. I think that's a pretty cool cover, because if you're a high school football fan in the state of Texas, no matter if you like Joey McGuire or not now that he's at Tech, or Jeff Traylor now that he's at UTSA, it's pretty cool where those guys came from to where they're at now. Traylor's turned down bigger jobs. We'll see what happens in the future. I think those are really tough jobs in no man's land nowadays. But those 2, congrats. I've known those guys for 2 decades. Went to those high schools a lot, Cedar Hill and Gilmer. And that was a really cool cover, because those 2 guys, where they've come from is really cool for the sport and for Texas high school football. what they're doing right now helps push other high school coaches in the state, especially young guys, that you can have this and kind of have it all in life.
That's when 5A actually did run through Cedar Hill, but college football ain't going to run through Lubbock.
No.
All right. I want to say thank you to our sponsor of the Monday Night's Talkin' Ball. Special thanks to Dr. Brett Robin at Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football. The former Longhorn running back knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages, specializing in musculoskeletal health. Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach, but also offers advanced surgical options if needed, including arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, and total joint replacements. With convenient offices in Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients now. If you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic, give Dr. Robin a call, 512-856-1000. That's 512-856-1000. Get an appointment in a location near you. Get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. Thank you, Brett, for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
Little update,
Jerry,
update, Bobby. Texas Tech 2, Oklahoma 0, bottom of the 6th. Oklahoma's down to the last 3 outs. Or it's Cody Campbell versus Texas for all the marbles.
There you go. Got a couple more questions here before we get going. Low JN. Would y'all take a 4th-year Quinn over 1st-year Arch?
No.
Me either.
Because of the injury histories. I don't think the Quinn that we saw was the same Quinn that before the injuries. I think Arch is a better athlete for college football and fits Sark's scheme better. So no, I would not.
All right. I've got a pair of questions here. I'll just say this. Arch Manning is ready. And he is more talented than Quinn, in my opinion. And I think you got to see what he can do. And so I would even a 4th-year Quinn, I would still, even though I think you would probably have a lower limit on what your downside risk might be in a season with Quinn if he were to be healthy the whole year. I think that you might have more upside going with Arch. And I think that if you're certainly going to hope to play him for 2 years, you're going to want to get that 1st year under your belt right away. All right.
Hey, Bobby, by the way, in the chat, I agree with somebody, whoever said it in the chat. If Dave Campbell's wants to put together unbelievable cover, you put Colin Simmons and Arch on it together.
Ooh. All right. Tennessee Longhorn has a pair of questions. Let's get to both of them. My girlfriend wants to visit Austin. Any game we should go to? Okay. And then also, am I the only one who thinks Hezzy Kent isn't special, just a big fit at tight end? Let's start with games he should go to. I think we have the schedule list up here somewhere that we can show you guys and look at. Jerry, what game should they go to?
Well, without knowing what you're willing to spend, let's throw A&M out.
Okay.
You got 3 options. San Jose State and UTEP are sweltering hot. So you go to Sam Houston night game, Vanderbilt, or Arkansas. I think Arkansas will be a really cool game to go to this year.
Dude, I think you go to A&M day after Thanksgiving. That way you don't have to hang with the in-laws. There you go, man. I'm kidding, actually.
Depends on how much you want to pay.
What's that?
Depends on how much you're willing to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. But second question about Hezzy Kent. Is he a tight end long-term, or is he a offensive tackle, a defensive end, defensive tackle? What is Hezzy Kent? You went by Brunswick High School to go see him, Jerry.
I think he can be a jumbo tight end in the SEC in an offense. Now, when I say that, he's willing to be an inline blocking tight end. He's willing to play some H-back. He's willing to do whatever it takes to play tight end. So he's going to be invested in playing tight end. Kid's got really good feet. He's got really good flexibility. He's not going to race down the field against anybody. 6'5", 287. I think he'll probably be 275, 280. But think about if you could find that tight end that's an extension of your run game, but he's actually a tight end. And then you have the athletic tight ends around him, the Nick Townsends of the world, the Emery Winston. I think there's a place for him, especially in this league against this level of defensive talent Texas is playing against. I think he's got a chance to do it because he's fully invested in doing it. If it was just like, hey, I want to play tight end, but if it doesn't work out, I'll move somewhere else. No, that's not how he's approaching this. He's only talking to colleges that are recruiting him as tight end. That is all he wants to be right now. So, and I do think there's a place for a jumbo tight end if they're physical and really get after it blocking. If they do, there's a place for that guy.
All right, Kenneth
He's
Cassidy.
not Darnell Washington, though, because if that's where a lot of people compare him, Darnell was 6'7" and change, and I think what he ran in the 4.6s. I mean, he was a freak athlete at that height. So I don't think Hezzy Kent's there, but I think Hezzy Kent could be a really good inline tight end and impact winning for you in his way.
Guys, this from Kenneth Cassidy. I saw Lance Jackson downtown Austin this week. Any chance he plays defensive tackle? He is a huge man.
I've always said he'll be 6'5", 6'5.5", 285-pound edge. And that's what I think he is. Does that mean he'll spin down? He won't spin down in a NASCAR package? I'm not saying that. But I think he is a power edge player, Bobby, that's almost can be a 5-tech, 7-tech for you. So you can when you want to play big, you can really play big with him. Because his athleticism is edge athleticism.
This one from Ryan Nelson. Bobby, Jerry, do you think Jamion Winfield out of Richardson flips to somewhere else? He's currently committed to Southern Cal and doesn't look like he's taking any additional visits at this point.
I think that one will play out into the season. I do think Texas, Ole Miss, a couple others will stay in contact with him in his circle. But I think that will play out into the season unless something crazy happens with the House settlement and it changes the recruitment.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight. I do want to say this. We're going to mention before we leave, Jerry and I talked about this. We want to mention that Curtis Brown, the former defensive back at the University of Texas, has a younger brother, Ismail Kamara, who also plays over at Gilmer. And he was just offered a scholarship today by the University of Texas. Jerry and I are going to talk a little bit more about him tomorrow morning on Coffee and Football. They'll also have some more on him on Recruiting Breakdown tomorrow. If you want any more recruiting news, make sure you check out ontexasfootball.com. We have a special restarting since this is a big recruiting weekend ahead. $39.95 when you use the promo code OTFOG. That's OTFOG. First-time users only. $39.95 for a full year's subscription. Please come on. That's less than $4 a month to be a member of ontexasfootball.com. Get all the recruiting news and team news you can want by subscribing to ontexasfootball.com. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it. We'll see you in the morning over on Texas Football's Coffee and Football with Blake Monroe. Thank you also to our producer behind the scenes, Matt Hutchison, as well as to Dr. Brett Robin over at the Austin Orthopedic Institute. See you guys later. Y'all have a good one tonight and root on the Horns in the softball championship.
Looks like Oklahoma's down to 2 outs.